no great mystery to us all that, when the Europeans came to Mi'kma'ki, that they found nations governed by our own laws, our own customs, our own traditions. We had our own way of administering relationships, not only amongst ourselves, amongst our families, amongst our communities, but with other nations as well. And through that, and through those systems of governance and helping one another, what the courts have come to realize is that we have those rights, those inherent rights. They call them inherent because they are almost born within us. They exist within us. They were given to us by the Creator and no one else. And so we have this inherent right to govern and take care of ourselves, and more importantly, to govern and take care of our children. What I'd like to do is sort of take you on a bit of a journey on the stuff that we've been working on involving child welfare and where we are today. This whole initiative, it's an initiative that will go for about 4.5 years, but the overall intention of it is to develop a law, a Mi'kmaq law over Mi'kmaq children. Are we ready for it? Can we do it? How should we do it? Who should we involve?
It's not about being ready, it's about utilizing what we have and what we're building on and just doing it.
Yes, I've been waiting to see this change, and I hope we still have a lot of help for the families.
I don't have any doubts on our ability to develop something that is ours, and I know it'll be good for our children, our parents.
We've got smart people in the process.
You can't ask for anything better than those 4 Mi'kmaq lawyers that we have putting on this stuff.
I always felt that our elders and seniors weren't utilized enough. They're the ones with all the wisdom, and they're the ones that have the knowledge. And we have to put them in every level of the government that we have, right from the grassroots right up.
I think we need to step in.
What we have, today is a provincial law. It's called the Children and Family Services Act that provides jurisdiction over our communities and how our communities administer child welfare practices. It has been that way for some time. As chiefs, we've had discussions with the provincial government back in December of 2014. And they were telling us that, this 25-year-old provincial law, this act, the Children and Family Services Act, was undergoing a review, like a major overhaul. And they thought they would let us know, we're going to be doing this.
When the amendments started back in 2015, it was extraordinary that there was not one reference to Mi'kmaq, Aboriginal, Indigenous. None of it was there. You couldn't believe that the minister wasn't looking at anything. We were shocked, considering our Mi'kmaq children were overrepresented in the child welfare system in Nova Scotia. So we worked with Nova Scotia Legal Aid and Dalhousie Legal Aid, where I was working at, and lawyers that were non-Native lawyers, but they were working with Native clients. We all got together. We established a committee where we worked several times, probably a week, on this issue. Brought it to the minister's attention, to the Child Protection Agency's attention, and there really wasn't any initiative whatsoever to change anything. They had already established the legislation, put it in front of us, and weren't really accepting our feedback at that time. And it wasn't until our chiefs got involved that they did, and thank God for that.
And so we got together a group of people, and we said, okay, we're looking at this act, and not once does it mention the word Mi'kmaq within it. And it's delegated legislation, so what that means is that provincial law applies to Mi'kmaq family and children's services. So in essence, they are provincial employees. If you email them, they have a provincial email address, and they apply provincial law.
It was hard working at McMahon family.
As workers, we're assigned each reserve to do the education process of our new child welfare agency. And I remember meeting with one chief, as I was introducing myself to him, and he asked me, "Are you going to be same as Children's Aid Society? What they're doing and what they've been doing, coming over in our community, middle of the night, knocking down the doors and taking our kids middle of the night. And we don't hear nothing until next day, and we don't hear anything else after." Anyway, that question as a new worker, I had a hard time answering. I said, "I hope not." That's all I said.
I pitied them. I pitied the mother when I had to serve her papers after giving birth, telling them I have to take their child without even seeing them first.
We need to change this. So we had discussions with government, right to the very top. I'm talking to a minister that is head of the Department of Community Services, and then I'm saying, where is community within the Department of Community Services? Because I don't see it. You know, and I was trying to explain to her the importance of community and the involvement of community as it relates to the care, development, and welfare of our children.
When I look at my community, I'm saying to myself, this is community property, Indian country. That's what it is, community. And it belongs to us.
We fix it, we repair it, we mend it before it breaks too much, right? Let's help them before the crisis occurs. Not after, but before.
We need to look out for the parents too, and for the offenders and everybody else that's involved, because really, we're all one Mi'kmaq nation.
We didn't get everything we wanted, you know, but what we did get was 25 new amendments to that provincial law, the Children and Family Services Act, that would apply to our communities. But we have another system. We have a federal system that is coming in now. And what has taken place federally is quite fascinating, because the federal government is considering federal child welfare law as we speak. We're engaged in that process. It's a national process. There's a number of Aboriginal groups involved within that on a federal level. We have not ever been in a place like this ever before. The way I describe it is like we're in the midst of this perfect storm. You know, you have two major systems coming together here. You have the provincial law, the provincial process of the Children and Family Services Act that's coming in. We have those 25 amendments that apply to Mi'kmaq people. We need to seize the opportunity. We need to push government. We need to have our voices heard, and to get that recognition through federal law of our inherent rights and responsibilities over our children. So that's the other system that's coming in. And so we're in the midst of these two systems, provincial and federal law over child welfare. And what we need to do, sort of in the eye of the storm, it's quite clear, it's quite calm. But everything around you is kind of in the midst of change. So we have this window of opportunity to think about this idea of developing our own laws.
When we started this process in 2014, when we looked at the provincial legislation, that's when we began to sort of talk about how can we take this to the next level and begin the process of having our own laws for child welfare in particular. So that's how this process started and how this team started.
We already went through the provincial process, and we're now engaged in the federal process. This is what this Enhanced Child Welfare Initiative is all about. It's to implement those changes that we have gained through provincial legislation, but it's also now to take into account this federal legislative process that is taking place right now. Here in Nova Scotia, we're quite unique and special, and the federal government recognizes that. There is one agency throughout this whole province that provides services within our communities. There is one nation in this province, you know, the Mi'kmaq Nation. And so it's a unique situation we're in. The federal government realizes that. They realize that there are things moving in Nova Scotia.
So now as we stand before you today, we're in a situation where, as the chief has indicated, there's a lot of unique things and special things about Nova Scotia, and there's a lot of talented people that we also have here in the province that want to help us bring this child welfare project home so that we can do our own thing in our own communities. And this particular project, as the chief has indicated, the idea is we will have our own laws. We won't have provincial laws. We won't have federal laws. We'll have our own laws at the very end of this process. But it's going to take time, and we're going to have to take steps.
We have ideas. We sort of see the direction where we're going, but we need guidance. We need support. We need to know what were the original instructions that were provided to us from the Creator.
One of the ways I tell people is that where we're going to find our Unwe de Bludan, our Mi'kmaq laws, edegol, gluswanitu, aduwanitu, dantelintu digisquinu, a ceremonisitu. Our laws, our legal principles, where we're going to be looking for them is in our language, the words, the songs, the ceremonies, the stories. They don't have to be sa before the time of contact. They can be stories about things. They can be sad stories. They can be happy stories. They can be funny stories. You might say, I don't know about Mi'kmaq laws regarding child welfare or anything like that. I said, but tell us, what is it that you know? Tell us the stories, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the hopeful ones. Those are where the laws are.
And that's within your collective knowledge, within the knowledge that you carry on a day-to-day basis.
And when I look at all these stories that have been shared to me that I have been privileged to hear, I think that is something that we as leadership need to never forget, and to utilize it in a way that you don't feel you're coming here for a conference or a workshop and leaving, and what you say doesn't mean anything and won't be utilized in a way that the leadership can actually make a difference, that we can include you in our move towards self-government because you need to be there.
We need to work together and to develop those systems and processes to make things work within our community.
And there's a couple of things that we really need to work on right now, and that's customary care arrangements and custom adoption. Those two things are available to us right now. If we can get a process and rules and laws that we like, we can try them for customary adoption and customary care, and we can get everything set up, then that'll be something that we can start with in terms of developing our own laws and our own rules. That's why we want to talk about it. So we want to talk about things we can do. We don't want to keep talking, we want to do. We want to see changes, and we want to see changes as soon as we possibly can. But we have to write rules. We have to have things that the governments and courts and things can follow. So that's where Heather and I come in, right? We take what you say and we turn it into something that we can use.
And our first thing was to make sure we spoke first with our elders.
We know you all know. We need to hear, and then we need to find a way to make it work and write it down on paper so that we can enforce it.
We have so many committees set up, and we're going to ask that some of you actually sit on those committees and guide us in that way as well. Now, we hope you step up and offer your services, because we would love to have you on them. And I'll just tell you just a few of them. Wigamanej, Gigamanah is one of them. The other one is customary care and customary adoption, and Jen spoke a bit about that. But that's a lot of the work that we want to do, because it goes back to the traditional practices that we need to get back to and get away from Eurocentric kind of value systems that don't work for us. We also have a legal review team, because a lot of the work that we are going to do is going to result in policy, standards, law, and we got to make sure we get it right.
I wanted this to be recorded. I want people to know what you know. I want people to start thinking about this initiative. I want the talk to happen within our communities, because sooner, within the very near future, we will be responsible over our children, which is a huge responsibility.
To have authority over our own children, so that we don't have to do it the same old way, the same way that doesn't work for our families, our communities, our children, our parents.
It's a chance that doesn't come around very often. And we want to do it right. We want to do it in a way that sort of is receptive to our own customs, values, and traditions, and sets that path forward, that vision forward, where we develop a Mi'kmaq law over Mi'kmaq children.